Got it.
Got it.
Got it.
Well,
Got it.
here we are today, and I have with me a very special group of high status YouTubers,
Or at least soon to be.
or at least soon to be.
What do you mean by special?
I wanted, and we'll get Chris Picau in at some point. I'm gonna actually have a one-on-one conversation coming up with him next week, but you all have, I wanted to give you guys a little bit more visibility because I think you're all doing special work, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I said, shoot, I'm gonna jump. Oh, we lost Mark already. Look at that.
That was there was two grizzlies there for a second.
That's
What happened?
The owls are not what they seem.
I think the three of you make a very interesting combination because well Mark does have his dragon up now and has got all these crosses behind him on the whiteboard, and how to describe the other two I don't know, but maybe we'll start with, I want each of you to, all of you have been on my channel, and so you've all given me your story, so we don't have to go there so much, but I want each of you to tell me a little bit about why you started a YouTube channel and what you're doing with it. Any order you want.
Well, I'm the selfish one, so I guess I'll go first. I started. Hi, my name's Chad. I'm alcoholic. I'm Chad the alcoholic. I started a YouTube channel. Initially, I started the Bridges of Meaning Hub channel initially so that I could kind of try and serve the Discord, the Bridges of Meaning Discord server. So I put a bunch of playlists together that had a bunch of different audiobooks that were kind of for free on YouTube, all sorts of different religions. And I had like, there's Screw Tape Letters is on there. There's like philosophers and all this different stuff. So I just tried to put something up there that would be accessible to somebody kind of like myself who likes information. And then, so that's like the nice reason why I did it. I think the real reason why I might have done it was so that I could try to get some attention and have a seat at the table, because I really wanted to talk about stuff with people, especially some of my experience around Alcoholics Anonymous, and try to be useful with what I found there and maybe bring what I could to the table. So
Good.
And
How have you felt about how it's gone so far?
Oh, it's gone a lot better than I thought it would. I mean, like, I'm not really a comedian, so I just did it. The videos, the comedy videos, like the news videos, I started doing that so that I could actually try and get some traffic to the channel, and then and also just be goofy. And it turned out a lot better than I thought it would. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a comedian. I'm a class clown, certainly, but I think it's fun, and it's nice to do some of the creative stuff with the editing and all that stuff. And then the other channel that I have is the Chad the Alcoholic channel. That's where I get into the steps and stuff like that, maybe some poetry and different things like that. So that one doesn't have very much traffic at all, but it's been really cool. It's been really fun to be a part of the scene, and I really enjoy it. So
Cool. All right, who's next?
You want me to go, Grim? All right, I'll go. That's fine.
The Brady Bunch here.
I know, really.
Really weird.
I bet we all
Brady
have
Bunch.
different. We have different squares too, don't we? I bet. So, yeah. So I started my channel, Navigating Patterns, because that sort of embodies what I think we need to be able to do, which is navigate patterns, right? So it's about making sense and clarity in the world. And I cover models and I cover word definitions. And so, part of this I can blame on you, Paul, because you run my life now. That's my theory about why weird synchronicities are happening. Puppet master, indeed. Yes. So I'm a mere guinea pig. But one of the things that happened was, John Vervaeke talked about cultural cognitive grammar, and I agree, it's a big deal and it's a problem. And he kind of puts back with the ancient Greeks, which I think is absurd, but whatever. If we were broken that long ago, we wouldn't have lasted this long. It's a logic thing I do. So, but I do think he has a point. I mean, there's definitely a way, and lots of other people, even just since I started my channel, and it's not that old, right, have started to notice. So there's Catherine Brodsky on she's a journalist. She's got a lot of stuff going on Twitter, and she talks about this all the time. She's got a series of articles on Substack about, misuse of words, like just complete. Right. But I'm going deeper than that. I'm going past words into models of how people are thinking about things versus what they're saying, because they're thinking one thing, they're talking about something else, and they're trying to convey yet a third thing. So I'm trying to disentangle a lot of that and get to the bottom of that, and also give you tools, to understand phenomena like conspiracy theories. Which some of us may or may not be happy about at my recapitulation of conspiracies, and things like that. And I also do, somewhat take requests from like the Discord server, and a lot of this is around the Discord server, right? Because I'm on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server that also has a YouTube channel. And I was appearing on YouTube. So we've got our own. There's like 3 Ritnar religion. There's not religion videos that I'm in with Manuel and Jules, and they're excellent. And then Chris has been getting me. So I talked to Chris yesterday. He just released that video today. It's probably our best talk. It's fantastic. I mean, I was like, what is going on? This is so amazing. And Chris is so good. Like, he's right out in front of me. And I'm just like, he's so smart. He's so smart, and I appeared with Mary Cohen a couple of times, and I've been on the Meaning Code. In fact, we get another round on the Meaning Code just to finish out the Jordan Peterson, John Vervaeke talk. I think that's 7 parts. It's going to be 8 parts, something like that.
Really?
Right. And the first talk I had with her, I had right after I had my first talk with you. And we talked about the 4 Ps model, which has since been changed. So, I got used to this sort of thing. And it's like, oh, well, I can do this. Like, and I got some equipment, and I got a fancy mic, and I get a relatively high-end webcam. It's still a webcam. It's not this nice Sony whatever you keep talking about, but because I priced that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely not
that'll
my
set
budget.
you back a little bit.
So yeah, I'm trying to help to address some of these issues that I think John Vervaeke has very correct, as opposed to maybe some of the things like Ritnar that I think he is very wrong. So that's basically the story there. Now you've got no more time, Grim. Now you have to cough it up. Sorry.
Would you repeat the question?
I must say, I'm going to confess it here that, hierarchies are inevitable. And of the 3 of you, I've kind of become a little addicted to Grim's channel. Just when I click on that video, I really don't know what I'm going to see. And this thing, that I get nightmares about that. That's
I heard him say, I think I was watching his talk with you, and he said something about, now I have a dragon at my door. And I was like, okay, I said that mean stuff about those thumbnails. I have to make amends for slamming whoever came up with the Spider-Man thumbnails on that show. And so I thought I would make amends for that by humiliating myself by being the dragon at Mark's door as I debunk his obfuscationist attempt at coming at conspiracy theorists.
well. You and I had a nice conversation a while back now, Grim, and you're doing some really funky stuff with your channel. What are you doing on YouTube? At least as long as they allow you here.
Well, true. Well, as everyone who's watched our previous conversation, you can search for on Paul's channel as like double bastard latchkey fella. My holy quest remains the same: to tear down the 4th wall. The black screen programming, they've hijacked the campfire circuit and been regularly scheduling programming everyone around me, and like I see like otherwise brilliant minds swept up in such trivial fighting and infight. I see through it, and I can't. It's Cassandra. I have a Cassandra complex, as they say it. And now I'm in the populace that's being swept up and dehumaned for our lack of obedience. And so I have to scream as loud and true as I can while I can. And part of which is training an army of um, lobster monkeys of the army of the 12 monkeys variety. There's people trapped in video game realities and like everything here on YouTube, like what we're doing, and I hope you see it on some level especially, is mission work. Because we are comfort to otherwise lonely people.
Yes.
Like to quote Tears in the Rain, I've seen things you people would not believe,
Yeah.
such as people who live stream themselves to 16 other people, like just them sleeping, because everyone out here is so alone.
Yeah.
Um, and and when they're not alone, they're trapped in the VR world that Facebook is now opening the door to. And you're gonna lose your children to it if you don't support Paintball for Jesus, people. I don't know how to say this any other way. And so that's what I'm doing on YouTube now, these days. And you're recognizing the third lobe. We're the third lobe quartet, and you're part of it. You're like the bass stem, I suppose. Like, hey, I'm gonna think publicly. This is me thinking. Play along. Be my consciousness Congress. And like you noticed when I pointed out, hey, you're missing the shadow matriarchy. And the part about where it says the rats lose the ability to care, to train their young and to care for young. And what happens after that. And I saw you use the word atomized, and so you're seeing that now. And I'm like, whew. Cause like for Cassandra's, like people like with an audience seeing things. It's like Jordan Peterson seeing that like they're putting words in your mouth now. They're telling you to call them Zod. He saw that and stood up and then, caught a book tour wave, ended up in a coma in Russia. We're coming for you, Papa. We're coming.
You
Go
was
watch-
in the belly of the whale for sure,
Go
right?
watch Pinocchio lecture. It's great. Go stare at your Mandela and listen to the Jupiter song again. Pajot's going back to Jupiter. Who lives in Jupiter? Chad, save us, please. Spin the heads.
Well, speaking of Jordan Peterson, this morning I actually watched a brand new part of a brand new live lecture that he just put on over in I don't know the town that he was in, but it was just, and it's like it's probably some illegal recording from inside the theater, but it was really good. There's some good stuff in there. It's the same old Peterson stuff pretty much, but he, it's talking about free speech. And then he talked about, he had this cool little bit in there about music and the layers of music and how, all the Petersonian jargon, but I still love it, man. I won't live my life exactly by it because a lot of it to me is self-propelled, self-help stuff. And I don't think that really works very well for somebody like me. I need to rely on more of a love and service towards others model, and because this is one of my greatest beefs, I think, about all this stuff, and it might be related to what you're talking about, Grim, with some of the black screen, whatever. It's like, I think it's kind of like the plague of self-love, and I don't like it at all. I think that it's misdirected. It's too high in the hierarchy. And I think that that's where everything got kind of screwed up. And Mark talks a lot about the middle out stuff. And I think that's the spirit of self-love. It's the spirit of Judas. It's the spirit of, and then when you find it doesn't work, it's like, there's nothing left. And so I've already been down that path, and no, thank you. So yeah, that's what I got on that. I wanted to show you, Grim. I don't know if you can see this, but I was putting it up before. But
To the monkeys?
Yeah.
This painting that we just bought, like a bed set on Meta Marketplace. and that painting was there. And I was like, I gotta have it because I really love look at this kick-ass frame. I love the frame, man.
Can
So-
you send it? Can you send her the image for a little bit more?
Sure. Like sit on it.
No, center, so I can see it. Cause it looks like the bottom monkey has taken the other one's poo and turned it into something
No,
beautiful.
He's got an apple.
Apple.
Yeah,
Also,
Eating of the fruit.
That's Adam and Eve. Can't you tell?
Looks like it's me. The crosses behind me are telling me so.
Google human DNA and monkey brains, guys. They've already done it.
you want to see the lobster my wife painted? Here, I'll show you this quick.
Yeah, baby, show me a lobster. Show
A
it to me.
painted lobster, huh?
I gotta
Oh.
say, Paul, that last drop with the new guy is great. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, man.
Oh, nice. So you and your wife are both creative.
Well, she's more of a writer. She would never consider herself a painter. I think she just did it for funsies. I love it. She made this. I won't put it on because she probably won't be happy with me if I did. But she painted a porcupine, and it's hilarious, and I love it. But she thinks it's terrifying. So she's a writer though, and she like the story writer. She's like she grew up. I think like when she was 13, she was reading the Gulag Archipelago,
Oh, wow.
stuff like this. So she's brilliant.
And
Then
she's
she
not a
got-
Jordan Peterson fan.
She likes Peterson, but not like I like Peterson. You know, it's like, oh, you go listen to your Peterson, you go do that. And she's supportive of me, but she doesn't. Nah, she's not really her thing, I guess.
Now Chad is married. I am married. Mark is not married. And Grim is not married. So the 15% of my audience, here it is. Because 85% of my audience is male. I don't know what that says about my channel or that says about me, but
Well, YouTube.
on
Right.
YouTube.
It's
Yeah,
probably-
In church, it's about the other way around. So
You don't have
What
enough conversations about sewing?
Well, and it's interesting, right? I mean, one of the things that really puzzled me for years, I think it was in the 90s, they did a study and they said that basically women are the ones that go to church, that start the church process going, and that this accelerates when they get pregnant. Not even when they have kids, but like the minute they get pregnant, it's like, all right, gotta start going to church. It's a very mysterious thing. And I couldn't figure it out for years. I was like, what the hell is it? Why would this makes no sense? It makes no sense. But then it does make sense once you get the broader context. And I think that's if you wanted to think about Peterson in terms of, well, what's the one thing? Like, what is the one thing, right? Because there's a lot of little things, right? But what do all those little things have in common? And it's this idea of opening you up to the broader context. So like he had a way of saying, all right, I know that this is a stupid book and that there's 10,000 unique words or something like that. I read that somewhere. I don't know if that's true. There's 10,000 unique words in the book. And therefore, you only need to be a second grade moron to read it. But I'm going to take this book seriously because it survived over the years. All right. And so that changed. Like, here's an academic going, no, I'm going to take this seriously because it's older than me. Effectively, right? Like most academics read things that are much younger than them, by the way. That's sort of an interesting fact to note. Oh, wait, they're all reading stuff that's younger than them. How weird, because papers are published all the time. And right. And we have a lot of more published material in the past 100 years than we had the 100 years before that, et cetera. Right. So there's this Pareto distribution that we're tyrannized by terribly. There's the hierarchy all over again, just in production, in actual things you can do in terms of reading. And then what he did was he pointed to, well, here's this, the one that gets me every time is every time I think about Cain and Abel. When he did the Cain and Abel story, I was just like, I don't know how the world works. I don't know anything. I'm done. I don't get it. Because it's such a short story and he fits in all this stuff, right? I mean, and it's not that he fits it in, it's there, right? I mean, it's clearly there. It's not like he's drawing it out of the ether. Although in some sense he is, right? Like it's packed with meaning, with symbolism, with metaphor, with ability to cohere. Like you can hear all kinds of different things in that story, and they're all true, right? Even though, you know, they might seem conflicting or whatever, because there's the love of the brothers.
Speaking of
There's
conflicting and the love of the brothers, I'd like to note how the last few moments of our life, there was a story of a penetration. And what I would like to go from there is like after the penetration, in the warm afterglow, there was this whisper that said, if you're not choosing to be meek from a strong place, you're a coward. That little whisper, that it's okay to stand up for what you believe in. Those little whispers, that is what, in that comforting place after we were all so deeply penetrated, he whispered to us. And that is what spoke to us. It was the divine spark spoke of in the infamous ayahuasca letter. And I don't know where it burned, maybe it burned out, but maybe I don't know. But that's what it was. That's what happened. It's right after the penetration, those whispers, and those are what matter.
That was an earlier book of the Bible, I'm sure of it. The penetration book. I don't know that book. Maybe Paul does. But when you look,
Enoch.
Peterson opens that up. He opens up this space where he says, here's an object, but what are all the aspects of that object that you can interface with? Right. So if you want to put it in what are you guys calling it? Complicated Vervaekian terms or whatever.
Fancy Vervaeke words.
Fancy Vervaeke words. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. If you want to put it in fancy Vervaeke words, he points out all the affordances that the material has that you don't think about normally because you're busy scientifically reducing everything to a cup. And he says things like, well, look, if you're tired, you've been walking in the woods, you don't see a tree stump. Of course not. A tree stump doesn't exist, right? But what exists is a sitting thing. It's like, oh yeah, that's definitely the way my brain works. Yeah. You're looking for affordances all the time.
And he's like, here's the latest research, and also all the things that daddy didn't have should have told you. Those two factors were there.
The thing that got me the most, what got my attention about Peterson, it's the thing, and I talked with Catherine about this on my channel. What got me about Peterson was, it was like there's somebody who is doing this reciprocal opening idea where he like basically says everything you think you know is bullshit. Like all this way that you've been living your life, this self-centered thinking and all this different stuff, it's not, it's bullshit. So, and here's some real stuff, right? Because I'm not scientific, I don't give a shit about that. Like it doesn't, none of that matters to me. What mattered to me was he was able to basically, in a way, sit me down without telling me to sit down. He grabbed my attention by saying, what you're doing is bullshit. And what they're doing is bullshit. Here, listen to this. And so there was like, oh, so he called me on my bullshit. And I couldn't really argue with some of that, right? So it got my attention. This is what, and so like when he made the call and put those videos out on the Bill C-16 thing, as we say, they came for the culture war and stayed for the content. Because like by the time I got to the video on existentialism in the Maps of Meaning, I believe in like 2015, that video, that was hitting at home, man. Because I just like, because you see it, all this stuff happening in the world, and like, but again, if you go back, like you can like Tom Sowell was saying a lot of this shit like 30 years ago, so it's not new stuff. But it was so nice to have somebody say, what are you doing? Listen to this, and then that's what I think happened. Like you're saying, I mean, the scientific shit, who gives a shit about that? Obviously, like he also spoke to me because in the AA frame at the time for me, he's talking about a God of my understanding. And my God is a God of a seek. Like if I seek him, he'll be there. So I'm like, cool, this is a dude that can help me seek a little bit. And it started opening up all this different stuff for me. And I started actually stealing some of the stuff that he's using and like working with some of the guys that I'm working with in sponsorship. And I really like the the attitude that he was carrying into his talks and it is gripping and it's useful, and so that's what I think of that. It's so difficult for me to like listen to some of these other guys though, like the conversation you had, Paul, with John Vervaeke the other day, that was stunning, because that was like, oh, this guy keeps up what he's doing, he's gonna be on the other side of the glass, and he's maybe right, because like, I don't understand this about Peterson either. How do you read all this different stuff and seek the way you're seeking, and then have a defense against being captured by God or whatever, and that's what blows my mind. You have to be really, I think, actively trying to force yourself from not being captured.
Well, see, at this point in the question, I turn my Consciousness Congress to Pastor Paul Vanderklay's Discord Q&As, and I say, like, hey, what was that Jonah story again? Because if he's not going to Geppetto, he's going to Jonah. So how does that play out? You know that Bible, right?
You should be a preacher. That line was genius. If he's not going to Geppetto, he's going to Jonah. I got to write that one down.
Yeah.
That might be the title. That might be the title of this video.
That's a good. Definitely you can see that, Chad. To your point, I think that Peterson and Vervaeke, they're not just middle out, but they're also taking someone like Heidegger seriously. And the thing that came out in that video for me was Heidegger's obvious mistake. And I'm like, how are people falling for this? Like, I don't get it. Like, how did you not see the idiot move that Heidegger made and go, hey, wait a minute, all of his stuff is based on this idiot move. Let's not go there. Like, you just misclassified the church as some sort of phantom that you saw somebody act out in the church. That's not the church, and the people in the church are not the same thing. And if it's just a handful of people, then it's not the same thing. And everybody makes that mistake. So, like, the people who talk about church, we'll say the disaffected church people, the disaffected Protestants, they talk about church. And I'm like, I have never seen a church that talks the way you people say church talks. And I've been to some Protestant churches. I've just never heard this hell and damnation preaching. I'm sure it exists. I get it, but I've never heard it. Well, but then this gets into sample size and stuff like that. So Sally Joe is like, she's like, oh, the church across my street is awesome, and the pastor is awesome, and I never knew church could be this good. And I'm like, I'm really, Sally? You must not have been trying, because you go to a Catholic church, you never would have heard any of that stuff. Near as I can tell, I've been in a ton of Catholic churches, and they just don't talk like that. They're not hell and damnation preachers, or at least if they are, they can't be in the majority.
Well,
let me posit that we may be in the times when the servants of the Lord need to meet in each other's homes in twos and threes. But Pastor Paul, please take control of this ship and steer it somewhere.
Oh, I don't like taking control of ships and steering them. That's why many of my efforts just run up upon the shoals, and it's sometimes in the wreckage that I can pick through and find interesting things. So
you're going to let us wreck so that you can find interesting things. Oh, that's Christian of you, Pastor Paul. Thanks a lot.
Well, see, I
think it is.
Tell me of the third lobe or
okay, the third lobe. So I'll answer the first question I asked all of you, which the first answer is, why did I start a YouTube channel? I have no idea. I just did it.
We don't have 40 minutes, Paul. Just warning on it. Can you keep it to 2?
I do. Keep going. Tell it how it is. Preach on.
I had to poke him. I had no choice. My intro video is like 2 minutes. This is like two days.
So I'll tie some things together here. Okay. I'll lash the ship a little bit before we go up on the rocks. But I've liked everything that's been said so far. Like Chad, I mean, I saw Peterson and I saw something there, and I said, this guy is doing something which I haven't seen done. And I both want, I want in on the game, just like Chad said. And, even with my little YouTube channel, I mean, very quickly I saw a hierarchy develop, and I couldn't talk to everybody who wanted to talk to me. And that sucks. And so then suddenly you have a hierarchy and you have sifting mechanisms and filters, and all that just sucks. And so very quickly, Peterson, when I found Peterson, he had 300,000 subs on his YouTube channel. So it's already way bigger than mine. And so it's like, how do I get involved in this thing? I talked to colleagues about them, and talking to busy pastors of non-dying churches, that there's a guy in Canada making YouTube videos about gender pronouns, and it's like, that didn't go anywhere. And so then I thought, for a long time I thought about book writing, but I looked at my church and it's like, I saw some of my colleagues write books, and it's like, they write books and they give them out to the people in their churches, and it's like, you're losing money on this endeavor. And nobody's read that. Oh, thank you for the book. I really love it. It's going on my shelf. And read, not read, exactly like Chad said the other day. And so then I'm doing the Freddie and Paul show. And you know what? Freddie watches the Freddie and Paul show. I don't know how many times, 10 or 15 at least each show. Freddie's mom watches the Nancy watches the Freddie and Paul show. My mom watched the Freddie and Paul show. My sisters watch the Freddie and Paul show. It's like, I'm going to do YouTube because, I can spend hundreds of hours trying to rein in my ADHD addled brain and write a book, and it'll be a catastrophe, and no one will ever read it. And I'll go to my grave and it'll clutter up my children's homes. It's like, I don't want to do that. So let's see what happens on YouTube. And so then, of course, randos start finding me, and I start doing conversations. And so I have to sort of organize that, which I had done. But then I also noticed that I just turn on the camera and start talking into this machine here. And then people start writing back. And I went to Vervaeke's channel to kind of read the comments under the same conversation that we did. And I looked at my channel. It's like, I don't know why I get such excellent commenters on my channel. People write real things. And then Joey starts, we start the local meetup, and Joey and Rick and Tyler start the Bridges of Meaning Discord server, and real people start showing up. And they're part of the real problem of a church is that if you're the pastor, people don't want to lose status to tell you the truth. And it's only until they really get angry with me that they tell me to F off and slam the door on the way out. And it's like, well, that's not useful information. You just told me that you're mad at me, but we really haven't done much together here, because you couldn't, because I'm the pastor. So one of the beautiful things of YouTube is people will tell me exactly what they think. And so I like that. I mean, part of the difficulty with talking to someone like John Vervaeke is he's so darn nice. And it's like, come on, John, tell me what you really think. I'm from New Jersey. If you don't hate me for something, you're not really my friend. So,
well, I think.
Wait. I just got to get this out. Buzzwords are holy words.
yes.
And the estuary is magic. Okay, whatever.
No,
Well, this
Yeah.
this here is a salty little estuary, if you ask me. Just saying.
Besides, this is middle of the ocean. We're all the way down at the Marianas
well,
Trench.
that's why I wanted this group, because, and nothing against my other groups of, pastors are nice people, and they're people pleasers. That's in many ways what the position requires of you, to be a people pleaser. But then pastors, they're really nice on Sunday, but then when they get into their little huddles, you hear a little bit more truth from them about what they're really thinking about these sheep that they're shepherding. And okay, so there's some of that. But in this space, you people are telling me what you really think, and that actually affords third lobe processing. I just finished a 2-hour and 20-minute video right now about men and women, and that's coming out tomorrow. And, my videos are a mess. They really are.
Some of them.
Some of
Not
them.
all of them.
But that's the point of I just vomit it out onto the internet, and y'all are picking through the wreckage, and every now and then you come up with something, you say, this is really helpful. But if you don't do that, I don't know what's helpful, because we all have this bias to fall in love with our own ideas. And it's a real problem. And that's why I love honest people who are going to just tell me if I'm full of shit, because I'm full of shit a lot. I mean, my wife will tell me, but she's got her biases. So that's what I'm doing. And what I see from all three of you is, you know, one of the things that was amazing in our local meetup is, you know, at some point people are like, well, let's take the Jordan Peterson personality profile, and a whole group of people who are zero in agreeableness.
Yeah.
Here we are.
But it's sort of surprising, right? You pointed to this. One of the problems, I think it's a problem that John has, is he talks about opponent processing, but he won't be a good opponent because he won't be disagreeable, because maybe it's because he's Canadian, maybe it's because of his social anxiety. I don't know, but he won't do that rubbing up against, right? Even a little bit.
That man is doing the best he can. And if you can't pick up on the clues as to why he can only say and act the way he can, I can tell you afterward.
I agree with you, Grizz. I think I know what you're talking about, but we'll keep that conspiracy shit to ourselves, eh?
But Reiki's my troll crush. That's agape, baby.
No, I don't know a better conversation partner than John. I mean, after that last conversation we had, it was just a holy moment. And you know, that was his Dialogos. You know, that was something that between us was generated, and I was amazed by it. And it doesn't happen all the time.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
no, certainly not.
These videos, Vervaeke's gonna show up next time wearing like an Orthodox priest uniform, and he's just gonna be full out like veneration. It's gonna be awesome, because like, how do you not flip? Like, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the way that he was talking about it is he was like, it sounded as if he was like in love with it, but yet he's like, no, don't do it.
It's Gosu, man. It's Gosu.
It's no submission. I think that's the problem. It's the problem of our age, is we don't want to submit, right? And we've been told we don't have to, right? We've been told we can be an individual all by ourselves alone, and that we can be sufficient in that. And we're not. We have to recognize we're not sufficient by ourselves at all. And I think, you know, that sort of came out in that talk. One of the things, you gotta listen to me with Chris Peck out, because I got through to Chris on middle out, and he went, oh, I got it. Right, I had to use Lord of the Rings, but I got it in there. And well, because John invoked fellowship. And I think the problem is, and he did this with the Christian story too, when he talks about steal the culture. So there's a Q&A on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord YouTube channel where he talks about steal the culture in the first like 10 minutes. And I was like, you're starting in the middle of the story. You're literally starting in the middle of the story. And then I realized he talks about structural functional organization and how things just emerge. And it's like, okay, but where did they emerge from? Can you start at the beginning instead of in the middle when the emergence has already started? Because then he does this, well, this begets this and this begets this. And I'm like, okay, but one of them came first.
Sir,
And they both came from somewhere.
I won't stop bashing my crush when he's not in the room.
I'm not bashing. No bashing. I'm just saying.
Not the what John Vervaeke has wrong. This is the third lobe cognition. Here's a thought game for everybody. If you had Paul VanderKlay's full audience, like every subscriber said, I'm going to watch that one, and they tuned into this video, what would you say to them? Like as a human, and then as whatever else also. So you can have two answers. What would you say to Paul VanderKlay's audience if everybody tuned in? Go somebody.
I love it.
Okay. Here's what I would say. What was the question again? What was the question again, though? What would I say to Paul VanderKlay's audience if they were all here? Two things I would say. The first thing I would say is, you're probably wrong. The second thing I would say is to make sure how wrong you are, well, no, this is part of the first thing. You're probably wrong. Investigate to see how you're wrong. And the second thing I would say is, if somebody else is wrong, who gives a shit? That's what I would say.
All right, there we have. All right, Mark.
Wow.
All right,
How do I
Mark.
follow that up? You can't follow up the comedy gold guy. It's not possible.
That's 100% genuine. Because
I know it is.
that's what I found out about myself, that I was wrong. I had to find out how I was wrong. And then I had to see how other people, if they were wrong, that they could be wrong too, because everybody's on their own path. And I don't mean that in your weird little, what I know you have this thing about postmodern, whatever the hell that means. See, I don't even know what the middle out means. To me, I don't even know what that means, because the way that I understand God and my relationship to God has nothing to do with, like, at the beginning of the story. I don't give a shit. Like, and I know there's a lot of people out there like me. Then I think there's a lot of people who, like, want to take everything and compress from the top to the bottom and make it all this perfectly. It's insanity. Like, what are you doing? That's what I want to know. Like, what are you doing in your life that proves what you say you're doing, or how you feel, I guess, or what you believe? That's what I want to know. So that's the end of my little thingy. Sorry for cutting you off.
That's quite all right, Chad. It's better than I could say anyway. Yeah, I mean, I think you know, to Chad's
All right, Mark,
point.
you're up. What do
Yeah.
you want to say to my audience if all of them watch this video?
If all of them watch this video,
Let's have it,
right.
Mark. This is your big shot.
My big bugaboo in it was probably my first talk with Chris. I've done 4 now. It is this idea, and I know Chris interviewed Nate Heil, right? And he tried to get him to talk about this, which is this idea of speaking the truth, right, and doing it poorly. Because I think that's what's missing. And every time I say that, it's this big thing with Luke on Friday about this, right? Every time I say that, he goes, well, I don't want to get into an argument. I want to have a conversation. I didn't say conversation. I didn't say get in an argument, right? And then they'll start, you know, Jesus wasn't like that. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he overturned some tables and like yelled at some people. And are you sure he didn't do that? Did I hear the Gospels incorrectly? No. Right. So, you know, you can't do this live hidden thing if it means I'm never going to signal to the rest of the world what my ethics are, what I think is ethical and not, because it's not about you. Although, listen, Christians were made for lions. Sorry, that's the road you picked.
That's another good one.
Right. Christians were made for lions. That's the road you picked. But more importantly, it's not fair to other people who don't have ethics and who don't have a chance of ever having, like Sam Harris has no chance of ever being an ethical creature except by accident, right? He can act morally in the world, but he can't justify it. He can't justify it because his system doesn't work. He doesn't have a system. He doesn't have a way to do it. And it is unfair to him for you not to tell him that. And I've mentioned it many times on YouTube. We had a whole Sam Harris's brain is in a vat with Chris, which I thought was just a great name for a video. And we may have different reasons for putting Sam Harris's brain in a vat from maybe Sam Harris's reason, but be that as it may, at least we have a common goal. And that's the problem with the world, is that a lot of what you're seeing is people are on a road to different things, and there's a cross in that road, and it seems like that cross in the road is where they want to end, or is the end of where they're going, when in fact, when all that chaos is over, the chaos is going to spread because they're all going to be along their way and fighting the whole way through. Because the world we're in is the world John described when he talks about Steal the Culture. We're in a world where everybody is in their own home little church, and they've grown their own home little religion. Some people, their highest order is safety, right? Highest order is safety. And I know you're evil because anti-vax, right? And then that's my religion. And then some people are, nope, the highest order is racism. And I know you're evil because you're racist. And I've labeled you as such. So I know that's true. That's my home religion. And then other people, their home religion is climate, right? And I know that you're not recycling. And so I know that you're Satan. And that's the world we're living in. It's very simple. It's very scary though, when you realize that. But that's the world that John's talking about, because he didn't start at the beginning, which is we have to have a common aim. And that common aim has to be towards the good that we agree on, not the good as conceived of. You can't start and say everybody knows what the good is and therefore. But that's what they're doing. That's what John's doing. That's what Peterson's doing. They're all doing it.
Wow, that was good.
Thank you.
That was succinct. I mean, you tease me, and rightly so, for verbosity, but that's why I have these two on here too, because they'll cut us off.
Do I get to push back on that in a little bit after Grizz does his thing? Okay.
I love the new art. Go ahead, Grizz. You got my audience. They're all here. That they're
No.
waiting to hear from above or below, whichever you come from.
Well, first I'd like to note that Chad just brought his cock out.
I certainly did.
Well, as the person posing the question, I get to go last, Mr. Pastor Paul Vanderclay.
Okay.
So what
Chad,
would you say to your own audience?
I say to my own audience,
The two most important things. Go.
You can only hawk 2 of our channels now, Paul.
God loves you and has a terrible plan for your wife.
Wow. Well played, sir.
Oh,
Based.
Based in the red.
No, that was a joke. That was a joke. I believe in the resurrection. I believe that this world is the beginning of what God has for us. And let's get started. But the irony is that road is, I liked what you said, Mark, about the kind of the crossroads, and it's going to wreck. and that is this. Christianity is both the message of God's great redemption, but our deep misery, and where those two intersect is, in some ways, there is no misery so deep that God can't make greater glory out of it. And I want people to know that joy. That's what's at the heart of my channel.
Wow. You thought Chad was hard to follow there, buddy.
You wanted to go last.
I do.
Even after he
Okay.
took his cock out.
I'm a sewer people. I'm a sewer people. We're done. You guys have your Taco Bell. Here's what I got for you. I think, I'm not sure, but I think Jesus said something about bringing kids toward him. And
Suffer the little children to come unto me.
it's gonna be pretty hard to beat VR. And I think your best bet is paintball for Jesus. And so you should find a local church, give them some money and say, I want to support your paintball team. And until they figure out what to do with all that money, you've done the best you can. Also, I have a Patreon.
I got one shot at a bigger channel's audience. I've got a Patreon.
That was shameless. Even I didn't do that. And I'm a capitalist.
And that's
Wow.
honest. I like that about Grizz. I really do. But- When are you going to start your paintball team, Grizz?
Yeah, do you got one?
There's a sign right across tracks of the guy who has maybe a paintball course or did one once in town with a big phone number on it. I haven't called yet,
Okay.
but my material meat space concerns are hard to face. So, and that's in the meat space, so it doesn't get addressed directly often.
You know, there's a church across the street. I've been meaning to go to it, but you know,
I'm doing mission work on YouTube. I got things.
Across the street. Come on down south. I drive down this. I live in the middle of nowhere. You take a left out of my house, you better have a full tank of gas because
Can I bring a
You don't-
cat?
you'll pass 10 churches. You'll pass 10 houses and 10 churches. That's
I have a
Okay.
cat. I have to take. with
Cats
me.
travel so well.
cats do travel well. Can confirm.
We just met our dog for the first time on Saturday. Little puppy. It was really cute. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
I love puppies. I love
We're-
puppies.
They're
Paris.
the best.
Speaking
They
of
are.
puppies and cocks, you wanted to say something, as I recall it. Would you turn the face again, Chad?
You
Yes.
wanted to assault my position.
Okay. Well, what I want to do is I disagree with the idea of I disagree with this idea about as much as I disagree with the idea of self-love. Like self-love is just about as annoying as this idea of calling out evil and doing it poorly, because I think at some point it's like, well, then who becomes the arbiter of evil? You know, we're going to say, like,
But it doesn't have to be a person. That's the whole point. Like this is why people like Paul's channel. And Chris is doing it, by the way. Chris Petkow has a whole series of videos calling out evil and doing it poorly. Like
Right.
he took that to heart, God bless him, right? And took it seriously and did it, right? And he doesn't care. He's like, no, I'm going to do this because this is a thing that I can do and that I should do. And I think this is the thing that makes Paul's channel good, is that you're seeing somebody think, and people don't know how to think, and you're seeing them articulate. So you kind of have to be articulate first, Paul, which is +1 for you. And you think very well, actually. You think quite well. Do you think as concisely as Mark would like? No, but nobody else does either. So that's not saying much because my standards are way up here. Even I don't think as well as I want to think and concisely. But
Hey,
that's
Mark.
the thing, is you get to see that thought process. And that's what people are hungry for, because they know they don't know how to make sense of the world. And they watch you making sense of the world, unfortunately, as a pastor. So I guess it's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
the problem with the calling out evil and doing it poorly, okay? Because all of the evil that I heard called out is all like totally duh, like no shit, pedophilia, evil. No
But it's
shit.
not. But it's
Hang on.
not to those people. That's the problem.
Yes, it is.
Let's not
Yes, it
address this. Let's not address this problem.
Well,
Let's hold each other's hands. But Mark, I wanted to ask you and that thing, the manual, you and manual building, you guys recognize that's an arc, right? Right?
Recognize.
The thing
Wait,
you and manual are building is an arc, like no other.
I don't.
You don't
I
recognize
know-
that yet? Okay.
I don't know
that's
what
fine.
you think we're building, but okay, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to that you think we're building.
Okay. That's fine.
A little more specific, because I've got
We
like
can,
5 videos with Manuel. Oh, 6. I've got one on my channel too. I've got 6 videos at least with Manuel. So,
Yeah,
and
that's the-
hundreds of hours of Discord
hammering on
chatting.
the arc, hammering on the arc. Go ahead, it's fine. You don't have to understand. I just was curious if you did. Sorry.
Totally out of context for me.
Now I
Yeah.
believe in conspiracy theories. Grim,
That brings-
Grim doesn't
but this
need
thing-
anybody else to do a conspiracy theory. He can do it just with his consciousness Congress.
No, like the project he talked about in his videos with you is what I was talking about,
Oh.
but, I'm sorry. That's how I do. I tangent, I have lots of tangents. That's me.
Yeah, you have a float.
Oh,
you have a
wait,
floating frame.
I want, I want
This
to
is
say,
news to anyone who's watched your videos.
it's like when you said, in your tweet about how there's a gold in the, Peterson talk with those those 2 fellows.
Yeah.
People like you that can see that, who can learn how to use OBS, can become clip reapers like me. And if you'd like more additional training or information, you can come over to my channel, but we need reapers of those gold clips. So it's us on the shoulders of giants. That's how we do it, is we snap clips and run them together and say different things. I wanted it that. So if you see the gold and can learn how to use OBS, and you got the time because you're trapped in the devil's false like matrix,
That's the same, but that's the same principle as listening to somebody speak and grabbing nuggets, right? Like the Clips channel that Peugeot has, for example. He actually clipped the Clips channel from Peugeot, clipped the Q&A that Peugeot did on Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord, even, right? And it was an excellent clip. It's the clip that I hate the most. It's the thing that I hate the most that Jonathan Peugeot says, because he's right, and we're on the wrong side of that for sure, right? Because we're on the Reiki server doing the meditations and the practices, and he's like, practice is insufficient because you're not getting together with people that you don't like doing things that you may not want to do. And like, what is there a better like one line summary of what the problem of the world is, right? People can't do things that they agree on with people they disagree with. Why? Right? Well, because you won't go to church. No, really. No skill set. And when you don't make mistakes, when you're not willing to do the calling out and say, this action that happened was evil, and I don't agree with this. And, so there's a great book by Greg Ellis, who's a semi-famous actor, actually. Greg's a wonderful human being too. Oh my goodness, what a great guy. I met him on Clubhouse, and he's just a wonderful person. And he wrote a book called The Respondent. And I think all the Christians should read it. It has nothing to do with Christianity. And then realize that, and I love Greg, but he wasn't in the not domestic court system. The whole court system is that way. It's almost as bad. He writes about being separated from his children and how his wife used an obscure California law. The beginning of the book alone is horrific. And I mean that technically. His story is horrific. But it's like, why is this? Why is our society allowing this? Why are the courts doing this to people? That would be a good question. And the courts are doing bad things to me too, and have been and have done it for a while. Why is this happening? Right? And that's the thing. Like, if you don't read The Respondent and hear his story, or attend his Clubhouse rooms, or now he's got Twitter rooms, whatever that looks like. It looks a lot like Clubhouse. Then you won't hear that. It's not him.
Where are you?
And he was famous, right? He's an actor, a well-known actor who was in Pirates of the Caribbean and all kinds of other great stuff. And this can happen to him, but his story is not unique. It's happening all over the place. And there's all these suicides from fathers who, got divorced, didn't want to get divorced and were basically forced into it. And nobody knows this story. And that's a call. Why isn't anybody hearing about this stuff? And why aren't we doing something about it? And that's the thing. If you call out evil and you're willing to do it poorly, then at least we can know, oh, this person thinks this is evil, and maybe I disagree, but I can't disagree with you if I can't hear your signal, right? And some people aren't hearing any signal at all, or the signal they are hearing is, oh, racism is bad, and I define racism. That's not the signal I think people should be hearing. That's not the signal that should be the loudest. That signal's out there almost by itself. I mean, we've got the three big signals: safety first, anti-vax, evil, right? We've got the other big signal that is racism first, racist, evil. And then the third one is really climate. And there are others for sure, but those to me are the three big signals. And we're not hearing the Christian signals because we're not hearing Christians. They're busy living hidden.
Quit living hidden, Paul. Go.
I'm so private. Nobody knows my name.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, it's to me, it's when we do this, if calling out evil is going to be at the top of the hierarchy, or anywhere near the top of the hierarchy,
not in the hierarchy.
Hang on a second. Yeah. Who arbitrates what is evil?
You don't have to. That's the point. No. You have to have a discussion around it, though, or no one can come to the conclusion, right? Like, nobody knows what evil is. I'm technically, literally serious. Nobody knows what evil is. That's why they're doing things like, I don't know, racism is definitely the biggest evil in the world. No, it's not. It's bad, but it's not the biggest problem we have. Not in the US.
I guess I just disagree that doing this should be like really important, because I think like all it really does is add more noise to the noise, and it's not really solving any problems. And it's
not supposed to.
I think that the signal that you're talking about of all these evils are just being boosted by, some of the bling. And I also think that there's been a lot of indoctrinated thought into these so-called evils, so like, of course, that's what people really believe, that, because they've been taught this for, in their public schools, like, like that, about racism and all this different stuff. Of course, these things are going to be very loud.
That's
It is
happening now.
not what
That
the
didn't-
man puts in his mouth that defile him, but what speweth out of it. If you're
Yeah.
resharing or bringing up evils, then you're putting it in the minds it otherwise wouldn't have been in. And the archons feed on fear. Why would you sow fear, sow love? There's two sides. There's
Well, you don't-
fear and love.
You don't have
and
to be
push.
afraid of something you can name. That's the thing. You don't have to be afraid of something you can name, but you do have to be afraid of something you can't name,
Most
because
people-
then you can't cognize it. You can't intelligize it. You don't know what's going to hit you. And that is part of the problem, is that,
Well-
yeah, sure. Now they're teaching kids about racism in a bad way, right? As though that is the most important thing, is never be racist. You can kill people, just never be racist. That's absolutely where we're at in society, right? But those are the kids. The people who are doing that didn't learn that in school for sure. I know some of them. They definitely did not learn that in school. They got that way after school, and they got that from the signal.
Amazing grace.
Who needs a frame when you have Grizz?
That's right.
The
So tell us about your cock there, Chad.
Okay, well,
Good follow. Good follow.
this game,
I gotta go, guys. I love you all.
Oh, all right, Grizz. Bye-bye.
Grids, my wife got this at a garage sale. Anyway, or her friend painted it.
Why did you put it on the table?
I think I was just trying to seek attention, and I did it when Mark was talking. Mark has been, I like Mark, but he's been bothering me a lot. And I asked him this morning if we can have a discussion, because part of my problem of why I'm being bothered is that I don't know his story. And so I want to know where you're coming from. And I think that's important to me, because I don't like, this is how I'm going to call out evil. Like I'm being insufficient, right? I'm practicing a prejudice. I don't know you. I want to know you. I want to know where you're coming from so I can better understand why this would be so very important to you. So that's my thing. But so, yeah.
But your point there is not a small one. And I know some people tire of the fact that I insist on doing a fair amount of autobiography before I enter into a conversation with a person. And it is fundamental to actually having a productive conversation about a lot of these things that are very much high voltage lines in our culture. That once we have, we got Luke running over here, personalism. Well, he's got a point. And that once we connect as people and know each other's stories better, we have a far greater capacity to find these things that we might have been set up by our culture to instantly attack one another about, to say, I'm going to bring in the clause and I'm going to listen, and I might disagree still, but I'm probably going to learn something from this. So,
Well, yeah, that's the sardines thing, right? Like I can go around talking about how shitty sardines are because I heard that that's what they were. But if I have not tried them, then I'm just, again, practicing my prejudice. And so I want to be able to outgrow that. I can still, at the end of the day, think sardines are disgusting, but at least I had my own experience with them. And so that's all, man. And the other thing, Mark, I think the reason why it bothers me so much is that from what I've learned through the 12-step process is I don't get to brandish a blame thrower anymore, because somebody like me, I could take like my opinions and my grievances and go to the nth degree and burn my life back down to the ground, because I don't know how to I don't have the luxury of being able to do that. So I have to be very careful. And so what I get concerned about is I think if I'm gonna have a captured audience of people who are looking for guidance, and I start giving them guidance like go out there and call out evil, and they don't know what it is, like they're not only going to cause damage, but they themselves are going to be
Oh, yeah.
damaged.
Well, yeah, I don't look. I mean, again, you're carrying it too far. I didn't say blame anybody. You don't have to blame anybody. And I think actually Greg Ellis, when he's on Clubhouse, he does this excellently. So one of the things he did that I really learned from was, you know, it's late pandemic, we'll say, right? But still, it's the sort of the end of the golden age of Clubhouse, if you will, at least according to a lot of the early adopters, right? And what happened was Greg would run these wonderful rooms. He's an amazing talent, right? He plays piano on the fly and makes up silly songs, and just we would have a blast in rooms that he was in. But one of the things he would do, because a lot of times he was pushing this was before his book was actually published. He would push his book and push his ideas and he talks a lot about meaning crisis. He says, I think we're suffering a meaning crisis. He talks a lot about the boy crisis. He talks a lot about these things. People would say things like, or specifically, they come in and go, and they'd slip up, right, which I now recognize as a slip up, and say social distancing. And Greg would very politely immediately correct them and say, it's not social distancing. It's physical distancing. You don't socially distance from people, right? And so I can tell you, and I will tell you, and I have said this before on YouTube, saying socially distant is evil. Don't do it, because you don't need to. You can use better words like physically distant. If that's what you mean, physical distancing is fine. There's no reason to use that term. Now, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not getting into it with anybody. I'm not having conversation. I'm not having debate. I'm just making a statement. And it's the lack of the statement that is the problem. Because if I don't know if you think that you know, pedophilia is evil, and for a lot of people, I don't know that anymore, and I used to, but I'm not so sure. What am I going to do? How do I treat you? Like, are you safe to be treated? I mean, we had a big blow up over this on our server over this. Is, you know, they're publishing some of the ancient Greek art, which is, you know, like I don't think that's appropriate. I'm sorry. Like, I just, you know, I think, you know, Chad's cock, perfectly okay. but the vase with the wrestling, no, I'm just a no on that. I'm a hard no on that. I've said it many times. I'm a hard no on all these things, especially when they involve children for different reasons. But people aren't calling it out. And when people do call out, sometimes they get in trouble. Why? Because it was never stated. Like, is this okay or not? And people don't know. Like, they don't know, or they don't. And the worst part is the publishing of that particular piece of art. The person who published it didn't notice. I'm like, are you kidding me? You didn't notice. It's, you know, I mean, you can, because it's a classic Greek, it's art and not smut. Are you sure we agree on smut? Because I know where smut is in my mind, and I need to tell you, or you don't know whether or not you've transgressed against me. If we don't have the conversation, and if we can't have the conversation, how am I going to cooperate with anybody ever?
Okay.
And I don't have to.
Okay. I've got two things. First, I really loved Chad's point about resentment, and especially in a recovery community, resentment is about the most poisonous thing they have. And I love that blame thrower, because addictions feed from resentment. And, you know, again, I've never been in a 12-step program, but a deep friend of mine who was a member of the church here and a dear friend of mine for many years before he died, he had been in AA for years. And so we'd spend a lot of time together, and, you know, pour me a drink. I mean, all these little sayings that AA has, that there's just so much brilliance and just sunk into AA, and so compressed into these little sayings that, and they've also got handles, and they are scalable in that you don't need to be someone who wields who trades in abstractions to understand pour me a drink. I mean, it's campy, but gosh, it communicates. So that's an important thing. The part of, I'm sort of on Team Chad with this. Now, the last thing you said, Mark, I really liked, because it's really important to hear people say, to say how things are to them. And that's where I sort of part ways with a lot of the anti-woke, and because people have people have trauma, people have pains, people have transgressed them. They might not be able to articulate with much precision the nature of the transgression. All they know is that they hurt, and they have a bunch of words on the shelf that they pick up and they throw out there.
Right.
And part of, I think, being a grown-up is to be able to stand there and get hit with the resentment paintballs from evil out there in the world.
Right.
And I think that's important for the church to model. And I think in many ways, the church should be able to model that, because one way of understanding Jesus on the cross is that he's fully splayed out, and go ahead. You know, you're angry at this world, throw it on me. You know, anything you have, throw on my shoulders. I'm going to take all of this sin, all of this blame. You just put it on me, because there's no limit to what I can bear, because I am God. Okay, so that's part of the story of the cross. The difficulty, and I think part of what we have to model and help people with is, because of the way consciousness works, people, when they get, and I think this is really what AA understands well, when they get into blame mode, it fills that consciousness field.
Yeah.
And then they will act, and they will usually react. And either it's, I hate you, and I hate me. And so that's when the agency goes into reciprocal narrowing, and the self-destructive behavior comes. And for a lot of people, boy, I'll tell you, that is one heck of a slippery slope. And it's just just let that little bit of resentment in, and bang, they're back in that thing. And they can, and I've seen people who've been able to maintain sobriety for years. They hit one thing, whoosh, and they're in it for a decade again. So, you know, I understand both sides with this. And I think to sort of finish off my thought, Mark, with your both taking what you just said about this, and, you know, if you had my channel, have the full attention for my channel for two thoughts. What I think religions, not ideologies in the Petersonian term, but what religions offer are better stuff off the shelf that says, okay, we can talk about this blame. We can talk about evil. We have a word for it. And we not only have a word for it, and we have a community that you can throw your stuff in because you need to get rid of it, but we also have this archetypal story that actually addresses the evil. And at least in Christianity, it's we're going to be honest with you right now that you can tell me how you've been hurt. You can tell me about the evil things done to you. I can sit and listen with you, and I can point to a God who cares and loves. And in fact, I have hope that God will be able to take that evil and actually turn it into glory. But you're going to have to enter into this journey of faith. And that's really where the AA people come in. You're going to have to personally enter into taking your resentment, taking the debts that you have against other people, and putting them on the shelf.
Right. Well, and right, AA is a lot about submitting, right? You got to submit to the fact that you don't have control of yourself when you drink or when you do your drugs or whatever it is. And AA is very much the acknowledgement of submittance, and then figuring out where do you cross your lines. And for most people in AA, it is one drink. Like, one drink is a transgression. And what do? They make you call out that fact explicitly. To your point, that's what they do. That's what these little sayings do. They remind you constantly where your line is, constantly. And you need that. I agree. But we're not doing that for each other in society. And maybe we don't have a place to. But then what happens is you become a BLM race blame thrower. That's what you become. That's exactly what you become. This is what's happening to us right now. That's where I have my objection. The reason why that's happening, or at least part of the reason, is because of lack of signals. If I transgress and you didn't tell me where your lines were, I don't care. I'm not taking responsibility for crossing a line I can't see. That's not going to happen. And that's the problem. If no one's telling me where their lines are, I'm going to cross them. Yep. And I'm not going to feel bad about it. Sorry, because I don't know they're there. It's you have to take partial responsibility for telling me where your lines are, or you're screwed, because I'm not even going to feel bad about it. That's just me. I'm disagreeable. Sorry. And I don't want to do that, though, but you have to help me.
Okay. Go ahead,
Well,
Chad.
that's what I'm trying to do is just, I'm trying to explain my concern about that. And so I appreciate that we're able to talk about it, which is really nice. But in the thing that I do want to correct a little bit though about the alcoholic drink is in AA, you could drink if you want. It's up to you. But I know that I can't. So like that's that thing that you said, it kind of doesn't map the same, because like it's like, yeah, duh, no shit, don't drink. Right. And so, you know, if a guy's sponsor comes to me and say, I drank, and I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, you drank, like, let's get back to work. Or if somebody comes to me and says, yeah, I think I want to smoke some weed, or I want to drink or something, like, I'm going to say, well, it's probably not a great idea. I wouldn't do it, but if you want to do it, that's up to you. Right.
That's how you handle it, Chad. But you just did it. Oh, I can't. No, one drink. No. That's all I'm saying is that one step. That's the right step. And you don't have to speak for others, and you don't have to judge others, but you do have to let them know where you're at. Otherwise, they don't know where you're at. And now that's on you. That's not on them, right? I tell everybody where I stand on every issue. And so you know when you transgress, and you know what you're going to get when you transgress, because I'm rather clear about it. I'll bitch you out. I'll yell at you. I'll backhand you. I will do those things. And I have done them before. You know where you stand with me, and you know where I stand on the issues, right? And that's why there was a guy yesterday who came into the server, and he was very, very difficult. And we gave him a hard time, and he exited in the weirdest fashion. I've seen this before, obviously, been online for years, so you see this. He said, oh, well, I just wish that we could have been nice and nicer, and that you could have embodied the spirit of conversation more, and, all this fluffy word stuff. And he said, but I really appreciate the conversation, and I really got a lot out of it. And he quit immediately without allowing us to respond in kind, right? Which is just a terrible move. You know what, though? 4 or 5 hours later, he came back. Manuel and Mark, by themselves in a room, he comes back. He's the third person. Weird behavior for somebody who's upset by us basically beating around his terrible formulations and horrible behavior. Manuel called him out for evil. Actually, Manuel said, no, you were trying to manipulate Mark, and that's evil. And you knew you were doing it, and that's evil. And he came back. Didn't call the guy evil. He said, what you did was evil. And the guy came back. And no one got into a debate or an argument about it or anything, because he knew instantly when Manuel explained it to him. You just said you tried to manipulate him deliberately to get him to feel something, which wasn't going to work, by the way, because it was a case of, you think I transgressed and I have no idea. And by the way, I don't know you. So maybe, oh, well, and he was trying to manipulate me into feeling something about that, which was never going to work. But he admitted that that's what he was trying to do. And Manuel said, then that was evil. You shouldn't have done that. And it worked. And he came back.
Okay, good.
Cool. Well, I'm glad we were able to talk about it, because it's been bothering me. And it's just, there's something about it that seems off. That's all. And to me, it does. And so I feel like if I'm somebody who's feeling that way, there's other people are. And if we're going to say that we're in this online community, which we find to be really great, then it is good to talk about it. Because here's what I think. I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here, I asked Paul the other day, what is it that we're trying to do over this corner of the internet? And I really think that it's, for me, this whole idea of Estuary is to have a space for people who are, and Chris said it perfectly, like spiritually homeless, basically, who are looking for a place that they can find other people to talk with and find, and so like one of the principles I try to carry into these things is I'm just trying to be useful because their life might depend on it. It's the same principle I try to act out in Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's real nice. I want to be able to, and it's tough. Like it's tough to, for me, it's tough for me to like say what I just said to you, but I want to be able to do that because if I can't do that here and practice it with you guys, how the hell am I going to do it out there? You know what I mean? So.
No, well said. I agree. Look, and so you need to ask yourself for Chris's videos, because I think he's got 6 or 7 of them now of calling out evil and doing it poorly because he's willing to do it and make mistakes. Does that bother you? Because you're doing exactly what I talked about. You did it already a couple of times, and Luke doesn't like it, and Nate doesn't like it, and most of the people on BOM don't like it when I talk about it either. But that you know, and I think you're right. The key to this, and the thing that Paul brilliantly points out, as always, is the next level pastor skills, is this whole idea around getting to know somebody, making that intimate connection, right? Because the meaning crisis, I think, stems from an intimacy crisis. And that's very much where the problem is. We have an intimacy crisis. And what that means is that we can't get together and find commonality because we're too busy finding difference. Right? This is the deep problem. I mean, we talked about this in the second video we did, Paul, right, with the church. It's like, why can't the churches all get together and just say, look, we'll ignore all the things we disagree about, and we'll just agree and signal as one voice about these things that we do definitely agree about, where there's no disagreement. Like that signal would go a long way, in my opinion, towards helping people orient in the world, because having lots of signals can be destructive, but it can be helpful. Having no good signals to orient towards is a problem. And as I pointed out, when you look at John Steele, The Culture, that's the world we're living in. That is a nightmare. I don't want to live in that world. I want all the little home churches, as he puts it, to have a common aim, and to have a common aim towards a common good, where that good is explicit and people can agree on it. Because I don't agree with BLM that racism is the biggest problem in the United States or the world, for that matter. I just don't agree. Maybe in some countries it is, absolutely. And I bet you won't agree on my list of countries or why it's that way. But it's important to know that, right? It's important to know these things, to know where other people stand, because otherwise we can't make sense of the world, because we're insufficient and the world is way bigger than us. And I don't care if you have a small group of 12 people, or, you know, in their own little home church talking about Socrates. That's not interesting, because Socrates didn't talk about what was good. He talked about the virtues, but he didn't talk about how to embody goodness. And there's one story that does that, I think, really well. What's that book again, Paul? The one you read all the time on Sunday? The Bible. That's what it's called.
It's really kind of a library. It's a big book.
It's a big book, right? Well, it maybe the Bible's a conscious book. I don't know.
Oh.
Right.
Well, we lost our fourth partner, and I don't want to necessarily go to.
This is a big book.
There's the big book.
There's the big book.
There's the big book.
Technically speaking.
So, any last things y'all want to say before we land the plane here?
No, just thanks for taking the time and talking with us, and thank you, Mark, for taking the time to let me to talk with you about that. I'm looking forward to talking with you in the future, hear your story. That's what I'm really interested in. I'm happy that Grizz was here. And
when's the next news show coming out?
I'm not sure. I just kind of played on the fly. Probably something to do with this week or next week.
Okay. How about you, Mark? What are your projects you're working on now?
Well, I just did a talk with Chris that he just released. It was really, I thought that was probably my best talk. I got a talk coming up with Chad. We've already scheduled it, so watch out for that. I've got a bunch of videos backed up because my editor is slow. But that's
you have
what
an
get for
editor?
Free help. I need an editor, man. I can't. So many problems just with the technology. I'm a technology expert, and none of my technology works anymore. So I have an editor. So he's working on my videos. I got three ready to go. And then I'm going to work on this intimacy crisis idea. And I'll put that on Navigating Patterns on my channel at some point. And then I'm going to work on explaining signaling as such, right? And what I mean by signaling and why it's important. So I've been going. So the next video coming out is going to be the one on knowledge, and then I'm going to do one on signal and why that's important and how signal forms to make knowledge, right? Because that's important. And then I'm going to tie all that into our 4 P's of information and 2 types of knowledge, because this guy Vanderklay has convinced me there's only 2 types of knowledge. And then when I found out that, well, I think that's true. When I found out that the ancient Greeks had mythos and logos, and I asked Vervaeke about it on the recent Q&A, it was interesting. He kind of, in my opinion, didn't really answer my question, but I think we can make a good case with our model instead of his, why that would be true and why that's important. So I'm going to be doing that work. And I do have a talk. I'm going to do Karen Wong. We're going to round out the Jordan B. Peterson, John Vervaeke talk. So if you didn't understand that and you want to watch many more hours trying to explain it, maybe just watch the first one though, Paul, just because I went over the overview thing. The first one, we did go into the talk, and then all the others were like stopping videos and talking about sections and dates. But I thought the first one's really good. Of course, there's some great nuggets in what I was doing with Karen, because she gets me off and saying, well, what do you think, Mark? And then I have to be like, get out of my notes and go after actually think about things.
Karen's wonderful. Karen's wonderful.
So yeah, so that's coming up. And then what's coming up for you, Paul? What do you do? Are you going to do more of these lovely videos where you've already got concrete ideas and you put out like 15 or 20 minutes of brilliance? Because
I was going to do one today, because over the weekend I thought, oh, there's something I could do, just a little short video on that. And I didn't write it down and I forgot what I was going to do it about. So it's gone. So instead you get 2 hours and 20 minutes of the problem with men and women.
I'm looking forward to it.
Paul, the guy that you had on today.
Oh yeah. Which one, David or Jan?
Jan, the budding philosopher. He said something at the end there that I thought was super interesting. That it's something that I've noticed even in myself, is this obsession with definitions that we have about words. And this is like something I think is kind of like this other distraction that's kind of it's helpful, but it becomes somewhat of an idol, I think. And I don't know, what's your thoughts on that? I don't want to burn up too much more of your time, but like, what do you think about this obsession that we have as a culture about these words? Because I think that's huge.
I think that gets to some degree into the McGilchrist dynamic of our culture being way too left-brained. And it's really helpful to define words, because when we use words poorly, we actually wear them out. And we have a big problem with that. Yet there's a problem on the other side too, where you can get so bogged down in definitions, you can't actually communicate. So it's one of these perennial problems that we're just not going to get away from. But it's one of these problems that you have to keep in mind, so that like I always have this problem with envy and jealousy, and that envy and jealousy have 2 very different definitions, and people almost always say jealous when they mean envious. And then we have this other positive way of saying, oh, I'm jealous about that, as sort of a way to compliment someone. This is actually a third use of the word. So on one hand, you can get all fussy about these kinds of things and really not love people well. And I think the bottom line is that we should learn to love people well with language, because language is powerful and love is what's most important. But figuring out how to love people well with language, that's really hard. But that's something that you learn to do in marriage over a long period of time, because a lot of marriage is a lot of talking. And so you have to learn to love people well with language. So I don't know, there's a thought or two.
Good. Yeah. Because I was thinking this is all tied together with the language, and then the intimacy crisis, this obsession with words, the intimacy crisis, the meaning crisis, the lack of personalism, and then this whole realm of the YouTube and the obsession with the technology and all this stuff. It's like everything's getting so much further distant from each other that it just becomes so easy to just not be personal. And it's like, and I don't know. I don't know how to articulate what I'm thinking there, but it seems like it's all the same kind of tornado, you know, of all these different kinds of problems, but they're all stemming from this lack of being seen, I think.
The greatest resource you have is your attention. I mean, that's where we're at right now. And so we should think about that in terms of the priorities that we have with our relationships. And you know, it's really hard to manage attention when we don't manage ourselves internally well. One of the most amazing things I ever saw was Jordan Peterson working the VIP line at an event. So I went there with my friend James from our local meetup, and a bunch of us were there. And James had, before that meeting, was like, I'm pretty much done with Peterson. I mean, it's map territory. I'm kind of done with him, but he and his wife were there for the VIP event. And then I watched him. There were about 160 people in that line, and they had about an hour and a half or so to go through it, which means that everybody gets like 30 or 45 seconds. And he managed to give each of those people in that line his undivided attention, to the point of when you met him in that line, you really did feel like you had his undivided attention, which was an astounding thing after he had just rambled for 2 hours, and was then going to, I don't remember if the Q&A afterwards was, but anyway, it was just an astounding thing to see. And it was quite remarkable, but that it emphasizes the point that your attention is right now the greatest resource you have. And what I think is genius about something like AA is via that attention, you lend agency. And so what happens in that group is, you're exactly right. Yeah, you can go out here, you drink you can drink and, fall off your ass. I don't care. That's your agency. But with us, we've got this agency we're willing to lend to you. And if you're able to take that agency and cultivate it and build it, you will have agency to share with another. And what you have is a whole community then that is actually broadening and growing in agency and spreading out in the world. And that's the most blessed, powerful thing we see in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, man, thank you for that.
Yeah. Anyway, gentlemen, this has been tremendously fun. We'll have to do it again.
Thanks, Paul. Hopefully we can talk again soon, man, or at some point.
All right. You guys take care.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.